We had a full faith that this land is, God didn't bring us from where He brought us. Look, I'm guiding Holocaust Museum for years. I know what people thought. I see it.
Aryeh, thank you so much for sitting down with the Rosenberg Report. I'm really excited about, you and I have known each other 15 or more years, and I'm so fascinated with you. I've appreciated your friendship. I appreciated your wisdom, and I just want to go through your life story. I think it's really important for Christians around the world and people who don't know Jesus to hear your story, because you come from one of the first believing families in all of modern Israel. Like, you literally were born 1 year before the state of Israel was announced by David Ben-Gurion, and your family was already believers. You were young. You were 1 year old, but you've grown up with the modern state. So you've seen prophecies come to pass. So let's get into it, but let's start with the fact that we're living in a time of war, and you've served in 5 wars, right? You served in the military in 5 different wars. So let's just start there. What is your perspective? I mean, what happened on October 7th? How you've seen Israel respond? Are you happy with how the country's responding? Are you, from your perspective as an Israeli from the beginning, but also as a believer in Yeshua, in Jesus as Messiah, what's happening? How do you see it? I know that's a tough question to start out with. But,
yeah.
Painful.
And let me say like this. I served in the army as a paratrooper, first in 6-day war. This was a very special time. And I was a sergeant, not, officer. In those days, they didn't let believers to be officers in the army. I went to officer
because
they didn't
weren't
know,
trusted?
Yeah, they didn't know who is Yeshua. What is Yeshua? What does it mean you believe in Yeshua? One of my brothers, they checked his letters, and he cited from the New Testament, from Book of Acts, and he cited some of the names, Agrippa, and this. What is these names? Really, what is this name? Who you are? Maybe they thought it is a spy. I don't know what. It totally changed, by the way. It totally changed. After Yom Kippur War, I was asked to go to officer school, and I went an officer and continued as officer, but understood 100% that they didn't know who are the believers. And if
there was a perception even that believers were some sort of weird cult. Is that
they didn't know.
A good way to describe it?
Know.
Yeah, it's just odd and not somebody we can trust for high-level positions or intelligence positions or officers.
And I say it was okay. It was okay. By the way, I was friend of at least 3 or 4 chief of staffs of Israel.
Wow.
Right? In those days, we were equal in our degrees.
And then they emerged.
And of course, they continued, became Minister of Defense and so on. They knew very well who are the believers. Okay. And today, not only that we have hundreds of believers, but mostly are officers.
Yeah.
Only in my family, I have 6. 9 of them were in Gaza, my only family. 6 of them are officers in very special units.
Right. And I have 2 sons that served, and one of them in an elite unit, Duv-Devan, a special forces unit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're immigrants and believers, and so that wasn't the way it was when you started in the army.
It was not. And I was only 1 year when the state started.
Right.
But, because we were living in Katamon in Jerusalem, we passed very hard war. Just after, the declaring, actually the war started on 30th of November. Many times we say Kaftet November, 29th November, when they in United States
did a partition plan.
Yeah.
So there was starting to be fighting even before.
It started the next morning.
It didn't wait till May of 1948.
Exactly. Yeah. It started the next morning. It was 2 buses that left, one Hadera, one, Netanya, and the first one was stopped by an Arab that threw a hand grenade. 2 were killed. And then a minute after this, the other bus came. They shot him. Another, 4 were killed. So this is the beginning of independent war. And this was like 5.5 months till Ben Gurion declared the state. We were living in Jerusalem. My father, he tried to get us, our family, which in those days it was my mother, my father, my grandfather, grandmother, and we were 3 little children. I was 1 year, and another brother, which was 2, and another one, which was 4 years. He tried to bring a truck to Katamon, which is in the Arabic section, in order to take us away. Because they started shooting, no Jewish truck was agreed to come to lift us away.
So you were in danger as a family, right from the beginning.
Exactly, just right from the beginning. So when he have heard that they are killing people there in Katamon, he came by Arabic bus, and the moment he went,
he being your father?
My father came, he risked himself, and the moment he went out of the bus, there was a group of Shabab, we call them, kind of groups of young people, but led by a Muslim brother.
Okay, wow.
We knew him. I mean, my father knew him.
Okay.
And the moment he saw my father...
A radical.
Yeah, he took the group, he had a pistol, and started going to my father, coming to him, and shooting, and shooting, and shooting. Now, my father saw, because it was a very big slope.
Okay.
And my father came from the bus going down.
Okay.
He, with his group, went up.
Okay.
And my father looked on him, and he saw that the man that was shooting, he was not aiming on his face, but a little bit higher.
Okay.
Like one head higher.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, and cursing and shouting. And the Arabs that were living them were very good friends of my parents. Now, this one was sent, we know, from Egypt in order to wake up these things, right? And my father, he was also a fighter, and he was hearing the shootings, and he have heard 7 shootings. Okay. Actually, he have heard 8 shootings, but it was wrong. Oh. There was 7. And the moment after the last shooting...
He knew how many bullets were in the car, in the magazine.
Yeah, in the magazine.
So he knew once that...
Yeah, it was a
once
pistol.
He was still living...
Yeah.
Then what?
And my father jumped on him, turned his hand like this, and then another bullet came. Oh. And the bullet entered his head from here to this part. I mean, right, so a lot of blood, because all the veins, a lot of blood. And then another Arabic man that was on Smiramis Hotel was shooting because they started fighting. And my father got another bullet here in his shoulder. And for us, this is the beginning. I mean, the private story. So...
But he lives.
He lived, but he was really struggling. And the moment it happened...
It's a miracle that he lived. He was shot in the head and the arm.
Yeah, but still
surrounded by
fighting
enemies.
Because he heard bad news, and he was sure that my mother and we are killed already.
Yeah. So he's fighting for you.
Exactly. So my mother saw it happen through the shutters of the Arabic house that we rented. Okay. She opened them and she saw a British vehicle, kind of a jeep, for 4 people, arriving. And she was shouting to them, take him to hospital. We are okay. We are all alive. Take him. And my father didn't want. He wanted to take the family with him. So imagine what happened that our neighbors, Arabic people, they called and called and called the police to come because we were still under British mandate.
Right.
We didn't have, they didn't come. They didn't come. Some were even cursing, let you kill each other. And only when they say that we are filming what happens, we take photos. Okay. One vehicle arrived. Okay. And my father didn't want to leave to hospital till all the family will come. Now, how you take grandmother, she was paralyzed, on chair. He couldn't move out of the chair. My grandfather, and then my mother, and we 3 little babies. And he's wounded very hard in in a jeep that has four already soldiers.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So you can understand what was the meaning for me a war.
And this is, now your parents are already Holocaust survivors. I mean, they've escaped out of Nazi Europe, out of Bulgaria. We'll get to their story in a moment. But this is your introduction. I mean, again, you're a baby, but this is your family's introduction to trying to be free, trying to be a new citizen, to see the country reborn, as the Bible prophecies that your parents believed were going to come to pass. I want to get into that more, but I also wanted you to, Prime Minister Netanyahu has called this our second independence war, this fight that we're in. I mean, this appears to be our darkest hour here in Israel, at least since that first war, because the first war, the independence war, was the longest and so painful and so deadly. How do you see it? I mean, when you think of all of the experiences that you've had, what were you thinking on October 7th, and how do you see this war?
We cannot compare.
Can't compare.
No, we cannot compare what... It's not only that we lost 1% of our population, citizens and soldiers
49.
in 48. 1%.
Wow.
6,000 people were killed out of 600,000. That was, but it's not only this.
So it was an existential threat at that moment, meaning Israel and the Jews could have really, truly been wiped out just as they were being wiped out in Europe. And October 7th wasn't that.
No. Far, far, far away. And it was so dramatic because all the 7, actually 6 plus countries, they say that if Ben-Gurion declared the state of Israel, they will enter. Because till then, there were they sent some forces, but it was mainly the local Palestinians, which were led by Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini, which is another from Ramla. I mean, there were like 3, Kaukji from the north, but it was a local. They said that if Ben-Gurion will declare, they will enter. What is the greatest difference to my understanding? And I go back...
Between 48 and now.
Yeah. I go back to the event when I started. Okay. When my father walked down the street and got a bullet above his head, he understood very clear, is God intervening here. All the bullets, I mean, the man is looking not on his eyes, but upper and shooting. We were raised on this event. We had a verse in our home that it was written, 1,000 will fall from your side, 10,000 on the other side, it will not even come close to you. In Hebrew, it's very lo igash elecha.
From one of the Psalms of David.
Yeah. Exactly, Psalm. Yeah. So this feeling that God is on our side, 100%. And we were not ashamed to say, story after story, event after event, God is on our side. He brought us from all this, Holocaust situation because he promised to do it, and he did it. And he said, I didn't bring you to a place to kill you there. Opposite, to build you, to wake you, to holy my name, he says, my name. And we felt it. People felt it in those days.
Are you saying that people did have a sense that God must be with us? Or is it just that you and your family believed it?
I was a baby, but I know from my mother's stories and my father's stories, because he was starting assemblies all over.
Congregations of believers.
Right, believers, right. But of course, we are living in Israel, right?
Yeah, in Jerusalem.
We have neighbors, we have everything. The feeling was that we will survive, that we will do it. You understand? This was the feeling. It was not so strong that, it's finished. Like United States, the president of the United States suddenly tried to stop it because he was pro-state of Israel. But then he thought that the Arab will finish with us because the Arab leaders, that's what they said. That 2 weeks give us, we'll finish with them, and then you will go back to your homes. We had a full faith that this land is, God didn't bring us from where he brought us. Look, I'm guiding Holocaust Museum for years. I know what people thought. I see it, right? There was a kind of feeling that God is behind these things,
So
even if they don't.
even if they weren't Bible believers or religious or certainly not Messianic or evangelical,
Yeah.
but there was, even among a very secular founding, country, there was a sense God is with us. Somehow this is going to work out. So that's something.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, because so many times they checked among Israelis, do you believe in God? You know, it was 70% people said yes.
Really, back then?
Yes. I mean, even now, all the time, sometimes 60%.
Right,
but
right.
it's not just the religious, because the religious many times say it has nothing to do with God.
Okay.
It's a way of living,
Okay.
religious. But people say, yes, we believe. And even now, I tell you, you don't hear them, you don't see them. They're not high generals in the army many times. But there was something very strong in the atmosphere. And that's what I felt also in this Six-Day War. I remember the feeling before the war started. It was very clear that the Arabs, led by the Soviets, we know, were going to finish what we didn't finish 19 years ago, in 48, and now 1967. So
And the president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, is saying explicitly, we're going to throw the Jews into the sea. We're going to kill them all and destroy the country of Israel.
So these are biblical principles that I grew with, but I know.
Fear not, right? Do not be strong and courageous. Do not fear. Trust me, the Lord is saying. I mean, he usually, he doesn't say it in the scriptures that you wouldn't be afraid as a human, but he's saying, trust me. That's how you can not be afraid. You can have courage if you trust me. But if a country doesn't trust, or if individual people don't trust God, panic, doubt, fear can really spread.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening now?
Now what happens is very interesting, because so many of my family are there, right? Among the soldier, it is excellent atmosphere.
Okay.
Very, very courage, like it's written in Deuteronomy chapter 20. Exactly what God says. Don't be afraid, because I'm going in front of you. And many of nowadays soldiers, many of the high commanders are religious, but really religious, that believe in what is written in the Bible. And this goes on the soldiers.
Okay.
Amazingly, I hear from all my grandchildren, what happens,
getting intelligence reports from the front.
All the time. So this is excellent atmosphere, but back at homes, there is a kind of feeling of frustration. Okay? And of course, the main thing is the hostiles.
Hostages.
Yeah.
Hostages, yeah.
During 48, we had several hundreds of them in Jordan. And they came after several months back. But now it is a feeling that we don't fight army. We don't find professional soldiers. We find, sorry I say it, power of hell that comes from hell.
I don't think you have to be sorry. I think it's important. I don't think there's any way to understand what Hamas did on October 7th than seeing it as these are demon-possessed people.
These are demon-possessed. And here comes the problem, because we are Jewish people. We cannot. Okay, if you don't give your other cheek, okay, I can understand you. But we cannot act like them. We cannot. One of my, she's living here, Nomi. Her daughter, she was a paramedic.
Okay.
Paramedic. And she was head of the paramedics just in the enter to Gaza. So what happened? That many, of course, Israeli soldiers, the moment they are wounded, they are brought there because the helicopters are there, but also the wounded of the Hamas were brought there. And
same place. They bring them to the same place?
Same place. Wow. And she is the paramedic. And she was interviewed. How you could be so relaxed when you took care of a wounded Hamas.
Wow.
And very, very, she's very beautiful soul as a believer. The moment he is wounded and I have to take care, I will take care of him. I will take the best I can. And some say, but we see that others make them to suffer, like if they put, to do it more. And yours, they are relaxed. Yes, this is the way that I will treat them. And I believe that this atmosphere, I will say today, there are more than 1,000 believers in the army, soldiers. And I know from my 6 officers how they influence their groups to still keep their moral and standard not to turn like the enemy. It's not easy sometimes, but not to turn to act like they did.